Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies. And unfortunately, this week we have another Saw movie to do, because much like the Chucky movies and much like the Texas Chainsaw movies, we have a new one coming in October, and we decided we were going to have them all done for the new one coming out, so we could do the new one and we'd have a complete set done. For Saw, though, we're not really fans, so this is kind of an endurance test, if nothing else. That said, I will say this. I did always remember liking Saw 2 the most out of the ones I saw. We'll find out in the conversation if I still have that opinion, but I do remember feeling that way from memory. Okay, Tim's got nothing. So, I'm just going to give you a spoiler warning right now. I feel like there's no point in doing a spoiler-free section for Saw 2. So, so we're going to talk about Saw 2. We did Saw 1, of course. I'll make sure there's a link popping up at some point in the corner for Saw 1. But I do actually still think Saw 2 is better than Saw 1.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of reasons for this. Now, I don't necessarily think it's good. There's obviously... I would describe some of the editing. I might have said this in the first one, but I felt this even more so here. The editing is rather obnoxious. See, whenever it does that thing where it's doing basically 1 frame a second of different shots, and it's like having a seizure.
It's very frantic, like everything feels like so hurried and like in your face.
And you can do that and create that effect in a better way by just having, maybe a handheld camera with good movement and things like that. You can have things feel frantic. This was obnoxious and seizure-like, and it was awful. Whenever it did that, I didn't do it the whole time, but whenever it was like a kill scene or like someone was dying kind of thing, that typically is when it kicked into this annoying camera bollocks of just this stuttering imagery. Hated it. Well,
there's subtlety does not exist in the Saw universe.
It really doesn't. It does not. So the reason why I like this more than the first one, although I don't think it's necessarily good, is I do think the main game benefits from having more characters and having more of a location to work with. Moving it to a full house instead of just one room makes it work a lot better, because there's different traps in different rooms, so it has a bit more of a kind of just variety and things to do. It doesn't feel like they're just standing around talking about their backstories like for most of the movie, so that helps. I appreciate that. I also like a little bit of the ballsiness of so the main plot of this is that Donnie Wahlberg, who's in the movie, he's this cop who is kind of neglectful of his son. Him and his son have a bad relationship, and then Dana Meyer, who plays another cop who's in the first movie, she they get a beat on Jigsaw's possible location, and they all go out with SWAT, and he shows up as well, and he goes there, and Jigsaw's just sitting there having some cereal. He's just sitting there waiting for them, and they go in and they're all angry. Although, in fact, they don't just go in. One of his traps takes out 4 of the SWAT team. It's actually kind of insane, how good this guy is with his engineering. It's really impeccable. I mean, if he put half the effort he did into something good as he does traps for people, he'd probably have cured cancer by now. The irony of the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah, and you kind of wonder how he can build all these traps, but luckily by the end they show a scene of him sitting down and drawing some stuff, so you're like, oh, okay, I believe that this guy can make this now because I've seen him drawing it.
Of course. And so he's just sitting there, and I actually do kind of like the ballsiness where the cops go into a room with the killer's just sitting there at the start of the movie, and they kind of have him in custody for the whole thing. I actually kind of like that idea, because it's different. It's like when I first saw this, I don't think I expected that to be the plot, where they get him at the start of the movie. But he's got obviously this insane master plan that's already playing out that'll obviously lead to whatever it leads to for the rest. Yeah. But so there's a couple of ideas that I kind of appreciate.
You know what I think the problem is that I do think this is mildly better than the first Saw movie, but I feel like you can only really enjoy it if you like the first Saw movie, because I don't know, if you're all in on Saw, then
God help you if you're all in on Saw.
But seeing all that kind of the twists and turns and the callbacks and how everything plays out, and then seeing these characters that are this character from the first movie, now we're learning all this stuff about him and blah blah blah, and
I
don't know.
it definitely plays with that idea that it's building on the puzzle that the first movie started. So if you haven't seen the first movie, you will not appreciate a lot of the things that it does. And we're in full spoilers. I made that clear. So when they go down into the basement and they end up in this industrial area, and then they go into the bathroom from the first movie, it's like, oh shit, like this is here.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I thought that was cool seeing the corpses and stuff.
Yeah, no, it was some nice ideas like in there. Obviously, part of the problem with the film though, the acting is often kind of rough. The characters are not particularly likable. The whole idea that he's neglectful of his son or he has a bad relationship with him, that's actually an okay idea, but like they do it in one scene. There's one scene where he yells at him and tells him to go back to his mother, and then that's it, he's kidnapped, and like now he's a grieving father trying to like get his son back.
Jason.
Jason. That is a joke about Heavy Rain, the PS3 video game, in case you have no idea what we're talking about. So that's okay. And I even actually, you know what? I kind of like the idea that the girl who survived him in the first movie became a disciple and started to worship him and wanted to be like him. That's actually kind of cool.
Kind of like his Harley Quinn, like in a way.
Kinda like so. I think there's actually some good ideas in here. It's actually, like I say, the characters aren't particularly great, but honestly, it is mostly the filmmaking that makes it like moments that should be suspenseful or not. Because I'll tell you this right now, this erratic editing where it just starts like flashing images at you, it's not scary. It's not even like, I guess it's supposed to give you adrenaline. It's like, everything's going down, and it doesn't. It just annoys me. It's like, what are you doing? Film this like an actual goddamn director, you asshole.
And you know what's weird is I feel like this stuff is kind of up my alley because I really like, puzzles and trap rooms and stuff. Like, like when you're talking about comic books, like I like, stuff like with the Riddler or, Joker when they create these big elaborate traps. But I don't know, I just hate the way it's portrayed in this movie. Like, just everything is so like in your face and like loud and violent, and like, it's like trying to be a cool metal video or something. It
does. It looks like a metal video. It looks ugly as shit, and it's only the first one admittedly as well, but this one kind of ramps it up, and there's a lot of greens and stuff. Like it looks kind of ugly.
It's I don't know if you noticed this, or I don't know, maybe for some reason it was how it looked on my computer, but like it seemed like it was kind of fuzzy, like everything, like the.
Oh yeah, it's got a very intentional, shitty look to it. Like no, that's there. It's always been there.
That bothered me so much. I don't know. Maybe
I'm pretty sure all of them do, which is one of the things I noticed in the trailer for the new one, Jigsaw, is that it doesn't look like that. It looks like an actual movie.
Yeah.
There's a scene where there's like outside and it's cop cars pulling in the trailer, and it's like, no, that's just like a daytime scene in a movie. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe I didn't notice it as much in the first one, but it really stood out to me in this one. Like
the first one had it as well. Yeah, the first one definitely had it as well. It's definitely, they've kept the style going along.
Such a weird choice. It's so, I don't know, it was so jarring to me.
It's, oh god, it's it's kind of like it's not the exact same as what Rob Zombie does, but it's kind of like an offshoot of it.
I can see that
with his visual style, and I hate it. Like you can make your film feel grimy without just making the like just cause I mean it isn't a filter, but it feels like a filter almost.
Yeah,
like that's what it feels like. But yeah, so you get the cop's son. He's like in the game with all these other characters who turn out to have all done time or been arrested, and they keep going, oh, what do they all have in common? Oh, well, I wonder who arrested them. Probably the kid's dad, which they bring up, and like they eventually find out. We have the one guy who's a bit more of a hothead who starts going crazy and killing other people. Some of the traps are okay. Some of them are kind of stupid. Like, did the one guy really think that? Oh yeah, I'll just climb in this furnace and pull out that antidote, because they've all got a poison in them. That's worth mentioning. Yeah. They're all poisoned, but there's an antidote around the house, and he's like, I'm just going to climb in this furnace and nothing bad will happen. And then lo and behold, he burns alive.
You can definitely tell like when like what traps were designed on like a Sunday when Jigsaw was just like tired from the week and like just wanted to relax. Like stuff is just like, yeah, some are like these big elaborate traps, and then others are just like, yeah, let's make a pit with needles. Just throw a bunch of needles in there.
To be fair though, that pit with needles is probably the most cringeworthy.
Yeah, that
Scene.
if I had one like nice thing to say about the movie is if its intent is to like make you squirm, I definitely did it, especially with that scene.
I squirmed during that scene because there was just something about someone with needles sticking out of all their arms, and
Yeah.
and do you know the part that bothered me the most about it? She wasn't wearing any shoes or socks, so her bare feet like were it was just
Yeah, and she's like, and she's really moving around in there. It's not like, very softly picking stuff up and then like putting it outside. It's like, kind of frantically going like, ugh.
I yeah. That's the thing. Like we're talking. These scenes don't necessarily sound that bad when you're just talking about them. It's just it's how they're handled. It's not caring about the characters. But part of me does wish that we didn't have the whole cop side of it. Like part of me wishes it was just no. We wake up in the room and we like. I actually think there's an alternate universe where I really love the Saw movies because each one is characters wake up in like a room or a building or a house or whatever, and there's a different game to play. And that's all the movie is. Like, and if it was filmed well, if it was like suspenseful and it was like a character study, I could see that being really good. But they're just this obnoxious, blood in your face.
I've talked about this before, where I've said online that this is without a doubt my least favorite horror franchise. Like I really hate it, but I don't necessarily think the ideas are that bad. Like again, I like, traps and puzzles and stuff like that, and if it was filmed in a better way, if it was wasn't so like
I actually think Tobin Bell's quite good.
Oh yeah.
He plays Jigsaw, and I think he's not bad for what he's doing. Like I hate everything around him, but like his performance is pretty decent.
When he was like talking, I was like, wow, yeah, this guy like he has a great voice for like a horror.
He does, and it's that point, and this is the line they put in the poster, and it is a good line. Like he's saying, "Oh, your son has a disease in his system, and it's all gonna kill him. He's gonna bleed from the nose and mouth. Oh yes, there will be blood." Like that's the line they put in the posters. Oh yes, there will be blood. That's a good line.
Yeah.
Like that's a fine line.
Yeah. I think like the movies are just too focused on trying to be cool and like trying to have this kind of interesting visual style where if they just pulled back, it could probably be something decent. But
I think interesting visual style is a good thing usually. Like typically, you look at like another movie with a good visual style. You're like, they made a choice. We want to have it this look. It's just the look they wanted for this series is something that's just ugly, and I hate it. I hate the editing style. I hate the visual style. All of it is it's garbage. It feels really cheap. And here's the other thing: there's a transition early on. It's we open the movie with this kill. There's this guy in a death mask, and he's trying to get the key out from behind his eye, and the death mask closes, and then what was his face? Donnie Wahlberg's called in. Dinah Meyer calls him in to come to the scene, and we find out it's because his name is written in the ceiling in like blood or whatever. But there's this transition where he walks from his bedroom, and he's always smoking, he's always drinking, he looks like just a mess of a human being, and there's this transition where he walks from the door of the bedroom into the crime scene, and it does this sort of fancy thing where the camera just pans across, and he's in the crime scene with like the other detective. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's not a bad idea necessarily, but it's really weird that the movie only does it once. Like I feel like if you're going to do that, you set up the idea that you're going to do that, every so often. That's going to be like a thematic thing, where it feels like the character just walks from one scene into another. But here it just does it once, just the once, not again.
It's like they didn't have a bigger plan for the movie. They were just like, hey, this would be cool, instead of being like, oh, maybe this is like a visual element we can incorporate in the movie. Yeah. Instead, they were just like, "Oh, this would be neat. Let's do it," and then no follow up.
Obviously, a big twist that comes at the end is that because the cops at this crime scene with Jigsaw, as he's like talking, he's making Wahlberg very angry, and he's getting angry as the movie goes on to the point where he ends up accepting to take him where he wants to go and all the rest of it. There's like security cameras and the cops like know this is going on in this game. They're trying to figure out where they are, and then the big twist is they eventually track the signal and it's to another place where it's been played back on like video. It's not live, as the the big twist. And
Yeah.
honestly, even that's handled kind of okay in the sense that, as Donnie Wahlberg gets into the house and he's like finding the corpses of the people who have died, and it does kind of feel like, oh, it's just after like what's just happened. It feels relatively convincing to a point, and it's okay. Again, it's an okay idea. Like I think the ideas for the most part are fine.
Yeah.
So it's a decent little twist. Then it turns out. The one thing I will complain about in terms of that though is like his son ends up being in the safe that's actually in the location they already were at, where Jigsaw was talking to him. And my only complaint about that is that Jigsaw has this really on the nose line at the start of the movie where he's like, if you just sit here and talk to me, your son will be in a safe place. And it's like, oh, he's in the safe, very good, very, very on the nose, you little bastard.
That's why like it makes me feel like I don't know, is this guy like the Riddler or something? Like it
It kind
feels
of
like
is. Like it's. I mean, the Riddler obviously didn't maybe do death traps like this, but
Right.
it feels very Edward Nygma-esque. It's like if Edward Nygma went on like a like psychotic spree. Like this is what it would be. In fact, I'd completely forgotten that in this movie they give you like more of his backstory, and you see him like he tries to kill himself when he finds out he has cancer.
yeah.
But actually, there was a scene that I must be remembering from a later movie, because I remembered something happening down in the toilet from the first movie area. I remembered something happening down there, and it never did. So I'm pretty sure it happens in like 4 or 5. But we'll get I won't spoil it. Just for people who have not watched ahead, possibly. But
I think I mentioned this in the first review, but I really hate his motivation. Like, just the fact like I'm gonna make people appreciate life by, basically killing them.
yeah, I'm just gonna agree because I feel like we did talk about that in the first one. Like, we could almost have a conversation about that every single movie. It's like his motivation is so stupid. But here's the thing:
like
obviously it's a bit early to be looking towards Jigsaw and saying, "Oh, maybe that won't be as bad." But given that it doesn't have that shitty visual style, maybe it will be a bit better. Maybe it could sort of capitalize on the good elements that could be a good movie. I don't know.
Although there's, I think I've seen the trailer like maybe 2 or 3 times now because I feel like it was attached to like one or two things I was watching, and there's this one line in it that like drives me nuts. Should we talk about it here?
Oh yeah, you brought it up. Yes, what's the line?
Oh, just that one part where you see.
Does it spoil the rest of the series? That's the right question. Okay, right.
A bunch of people are trapped, and then the Jigsaw doll rolls in, and this one guy goes, "Oh, that's not creepy at all." It's just such a dumb, cheesy line.
Yeah, it's one of these. It's like one of these like, oh, the character's going to be meta and like
and it so does not work in this movie, especially like the actor gives such an over the top performance. But something that also kind of annoys me about Jigsaw is like he is so like smart, but I feel like we don't ever like the movie doesn't really give you much like reasoning or evidence of it other than like, oh look, he did all this, but he never feels smart. It's just like, oh, he's smart because the movie's telling you he's smart.
Yeah, the problem is that this gets worse as well as the movies go on, that he has planned for so much and so many contingencies, and he's got so many things set up that go beyond like with every single movie it gets more outrageous that he had all this planned in such a short time span. It is like, silly.
People do such specific things. It's like, how do you plan like that level of detail?
It is, it is a problem with the series. There's definitely, if you're going to enjoy this, there has to be a suspension of disbelief. There just has to be. It's just what it is. The rest of the characters, they're kind of there. They all have their kind of archetypes, and they're okay. They're not like I say, they're not good characters. They're
See, the only other one that's kind of interesting is the one that's kind of like the villain that's kind of going after the other people, the big muscly guy.
yeah, because he eventually decides that he's out for himself. And what part of the whole game is that they all have a number in the back of their head, which is a combination, which he eventually like starts like. He doesn't actually have to kill him; he just has to look behind him. Like,
Yeah, I didn't get that. Why?
it just because heightened emotions. Actually, we talk about how stupid the woman's name, Addison. She's the not the sort of blonde one who was quiet, the one who was more vocal and like fighting all the time. She like sees like one of the antidotes in this box. It's got like two hand slots that are, it's kind of like scientists use these boxes for like experimentation, so there'll be like gloves in the holes kind of thing. One of those kind of things. But instead of that, there's these like, very clear, like sharp, like. It reminds me of like the closing sort of iris on a telescope, but it's like sharp blades, and you get the sense that if she puts her hand in there, she's not gonna be able to get it back out. Maybe with one hand. I could see her maybe doing it with one hand and then using the other hand to like hold up the bits.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Would probably be the way.
But no,
the best way out of
like
it.
an idiot, she puts in both hands, and then but not even does she put in both hands, she puts in one at first, so she still has the option of using the other hand to get that hand out, but instead she puts the other hand in the other slot, and she's just stuck there.
I mean, at the very least, like, that you're in this scenario, that you're in a trap. Like, wouldn't you at least approach a big box with like two holes in it, like a little more cautiously?
Especially since the last antidote was in a furnace, which burned the guy alive when he tried to get it. It's like there's precedence for this, and I get that she's desperate. I do, but it's just sheer stupidity. Not to mention that there's no real way to get the antidote, because as soon as she goes to pick it up, it just spills out. Like it's rigged to just empty.
Yeah.
On touch, and I'm like, Jigsaw's whole thing is that he doesn't actually kill anyone. He gives everyone the opportunity to get out. But I feel like this trap doesn't have an opportunity, at least not to actually get the thing. It has an opportunity to escape it, but not. It feels like he's such a hypocrite, and I guess that's what everyone else says to him. But I actually think he'd be more of an interesting villain if he wasn't a hypocrite and he was actually telling the truth in that sense. Like, no, everyone has the option of getting out of this. Okay.
Yeah.
But they don't really. Like, maybe one or two of them do, but not to any great extent.
I don't know. It's like, getting a video game that's too hard. It's just frustrating. Like, you want to just like stop playing. It's like you gotta lighten up, man.
Well, he needs a tutorial stage where he just sort of teaches them how things work, teaches them the rules, and but there's going to be tricks. You better watch out. Right.
I mean, if he really wants people to just appreciate life more, I think I would appreciate life more if I was kidnapped by this guy and then like thought he was going to kill me and then he lets me go, versus like if he trapped me and then I had to like cut my own eye out. I would be like messed up for life. Like, obviously, like physically you'd be scarred, but then like mentally you'd be like so crazed and weirded out. I don't know. I don't think it's very good for his end goal.
It's not. It's I don't know. The whole thing. It's
which, by the way, with that first thing, like the very first kill with the guy with the thing on his head,
death mask.
Yeah, I was like, another one. I feel like we already had a bunch of those in the first one.
Nah, the first one, it was the opposite. It was because it was the mask on Amanda that like split her face. Like it was like a reverse bear trap kind of thing. Whereas this was a mask with blades in the inside.
It's still pretty close.
It's similar, I'll grant you, but hey ho, what are you gonna do? And guys, like I say, Amanda's whole thing where she's secretly working for Jigsaw the whole time. It's a fun idea, and it was kind of a nice idea that she's going to go on to become the new killer, because obviously he's dying. He's like the final shot in the movie is him like looking like he's dead, and he's back in the third one. I can tell you that for a fact. But he looks like he's dead in the van at the end, and he's just kind of lying there. Oh, did you notice the little reference to Last House on the Left when he was driving there with Wahlberg?
Oh no, I didn't.
He says, "Where am I going?" He's like, "It's the Last House on the Left."
Oh,
it's a very unnosed reference, but I'm pretty sure it was intentional.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if I might have not heard it or might have been too spaced out at that point.
I might have been too busy playing Tetris.
I wasn't like, I wasn't playing Tetris or like anything like that, but I do find these movies really hard to pay attention to. Like,
Oh yeah.
I really have to sit down and be like, no, you are watching this. Like, I'll start to take out my phone and go look at it. Like, wait, no, I can't.
I'll be honest, I put it on when I was going to bed thinking, oh, this will put me to sleep. That was the intention. Like, I'll get maybe through half of it and it'll knock me out. Unfortunately, it did not, but that was more just me being weird and an insomniac.
Yeah.
But, so... Anything else you want to talk about Saw 2? Is there any characters or plot points that annoyed you?
One actually, I'll give it this a nice little compliment. I actually kind of like the like very very final last scene where it's just him in the passenger side of the car, but everything else is kind of blacked out around it, and then it just kind of like slowly pulls back from that. I don't know. I thought that was like maybe the one like thing visually that I actually kind of liked in the movie.
Yeah, again,
but it's like literally the last second of the movie.
I like some of the different ideas. Like I said, I liked Amanda becoming this protege. I like that we end with her ending the same way as the first movie did, with her shutting the door and saying game over. Like, it's a nice connective, like, thematic tissue where she's doing the same thing to Wahlberg now that was done in the end of the first movie. Admittedly, her voice isn't quite as good for it,
No.
It's not game over. It's not that.
It's kind of strange though, because I'm not sure who I'm rooting for, because
that's a good question.
I obviously I don't like the Jigsaws, but like Donnie Wahlberg is an asshole.
Oh, he is. He is totally unlikable in every single respect. That is like, I mean, take away the shitty like filming style and all the rest of it, which would still kind of ruin the movie for me. But one of the big things they could have done to make it better is if they give us more time at the start to actually make us care about him and his relationship to his kid. Maybe actually give him some positive points where I just don't think he's like a complete asshole.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I still don't know why there's this whole thing with wearing pigs' heads.
I don't know either. Or why it's the little puppet. There's no real. It's basically just like all these horror characters. Michael has the white mask, Jason has the hockey mask, Freddy's got the glove and the hat, and it's like it was like a very strategic. He has to have some iconic horror movie looking outfit, and he's got like a couple of them because of that. It's I don't know. Honestly, the biggest shame is I do actually think there's a lot of potential in the ideas behind.
Yeah.
At least to this point, I think once we get past the third one, they are so intent on keeping the puzzle getting more convoluted so that it still feels like it's changing the entire fabric of the entire franchise so far that it's so like the ideas stop being good. But up to this point, I think the ideas have still been pretty decent. It's just been the execution and the way it's been handled that has been really, really bad, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, I think if anything, like the way to go would have been to just do more, standalone movies.
Games. Yeah, just
games,
have him doing more things with, like I say, like have it be in the house with this group of characters and just be that.
Yeah, so I mean, as it goes along, and we're only on the second movie, it's only gonna get worse, but it gets so far up its own ass.
It does. I've never actually seen the seventh one, so that'll be an interesting. Not that I remember anything about the sixth one, admittedly either. So I may as well have not seen that too.
These are the two that I know I've definitely seen, and I feel like most of my memories come from this one. I know I've seen a couple other ones after this. I forget which ones, but I'm sure it'll be refreshing to watch them again.
Yeah. But there we go. those saw two. Ratings, Tim. What are you giving it out of 10?
It's tough. I think because of just a little bit of the potential, and this is probably the one that makes me like the least angry and does have some interesting stuff. So I think I'll give it a 5, so it's not horrible. It has probably the most potential of the franchise, but
I think I will agree with the 5. I think there's potential. I think it's squandered by the techniques, but it does get to a 5. I think I give the first one a 5 as well. So I guess I think I give the first one a 5 because again, I like the ideas, and I felt like it was at least some inventiveness going on, even if I did think it was squandered. However, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. The numbers are going to start going down after this.
Oh yeah,
Like-
yeah. Like the first one I think was maybe 4.5 for me, but yeah. So that's why I want to give this one just a slight little bit better, but still not great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this one's better than 1, but it's still a 5. But I think the numbers are going to start to decline as we go forward now. But there you go. So that is Saw 2. Let us know what you think of Saw 2 in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter, mild_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. You can get some bonuses over there. You can contribute towards some goals that will get more content pumping out in the future. But otherwise, guys, that is us. So thank you very much once again for watching. Keep watching scary movies, and we'll see you next time.